Yin Jing is associated with the sustainability of your health, as well as the longevity potential and regenerative potential that your body holds. Hello Kindred Longevity Lifestyle Designers, this is Zach here with secretsoflongevity.com. A few months back I made a video called How to Increase Yang Jing. It was a Q&A video. Someone specifically was asking a question that was around that, and I was just answering it in a broader video. And I'm sort of doing the same thing here. I get a lot of questions relating to this, and I'm just doing it as a Q&A just to fit in with the last one. And you can always check out that video here if you want to go back and watch my recommendations for that. It was both dietary and herbal as well as lifestyle recommendations to help increase the qualities of Yang Jing in your life, and that's what this one's going to be about, but around Yin Jing, which is really the absolute most foundational quality in the body in a metaphorical term. So Jing, in terms of the Chinese understanding of it, if you're not familiar with it, is seen as the foundational treasure. They talk about 3 treasures in Chinese tonic herbalism, certain schools of Qigong, and martial arts as well. So Jing is, you can liken it to the wax of a candle in terms of its life force qualities, and Qi, which would be a step up in terms of its density, it's much more ethereal, would be like the burning of the flame or the wick, so it would be the flame itself, the fire. And Shen is the light and heat that that flame gives off. And that's sort of like your spiritual radiance. That's the end goal of building a healthy body, building up Jing and Qi. And if you think of building a candle that's really thick and really tall, it's going to burn for a long time. It's going to burn slow and evenly. If you don't have the wick that's too long and is burning and sputtering all over the place, if you don't burn the candle from both ends, that's a very common saying that people talk about that reflects that idea of candle likening to your life force, and you don't want to use up that life force quicker than you need to be doing it, so you want a long, slow burn. And theoretically, we eventually want to get to a place where we're actually building onto the candle faster than it's burning down, so it's sort of like an never-ending candle. That's a little more esoteric, and there's definitely a place for new technologies that are coming in that are making some of these things possible through unique supplements as well as unique medical technologies that are going to significantly increase our lifespans and long-term sustainability of our health in the long run. These things are coming, and the practical things you can do now are largely lifestyle and herbal and dietary based. So that saying, burning the candle at both ends and also burning the midnight oil is another one, can kind of give you an idea of where you can start if you're at a place in your life where you're just so run down, or perhaps you're recovering and still been on this path for a while of recovering after a certain period of your life that was lived in a way that was like burning the candle at both ends, or perhaps you're in very good health and you just want to increase that, then this video can help you. So the idea of burning the midnight oil is likened to sacrificing sleep in order to get something done. This could be the #1 recommendation I give anyone. Sleep is the absolute best thing you can do for your health. Getting enough of it, leaving yourself ample amounts of time to get it. It's not quite as important of when you get to sleep as opposed to the length of time and deepness of that sleep. There's actually been studies out of Toronto and other parts of Canada that have shown that people who are night owls are actually more productive. Definitely people who wake up early are on that circadian rhythm that allows them to do that, and that's fine as well. An interesting thing to look at is musicians, artists, people who are generally doing more creative work do find they stay up later because that's when their most creative times happen to be. Writers is another good example. And this is that right brain that actually doesn't sleep, whereas it's found that the left brain does sleep. So if you're in a more right brain dominant mode at night, you might be able to get away with being up later, but just make sure that you're getting large amounts of sleep when you do sleep. So that's 8 to 9 hours is my recommendation. So I suffer when I get less than 8 hours. People talk about 7 to 8 hours. I personally like at least 8, especially if you're active to any degree. Perhaps if you don't exercise at all, you might be able to get away with 6 to 7 hours, but 8 or more if you're active. And you need to be active to be at your uppermost level of health. So that's my recommendation for everyone. To learn more about how to sleep deeply in a more in-depth video, you can check out this video here. I did it not too long ago, and it goes into depth of how to make your sleep deeper. Kind of talks about some of the things we'll be talking about in this video, but also things like propping your feet up to get them higher than the level of your heart and not using a pillow to deepen the sleep. And so it talks about why that is and how that can be beneficial for you. Second thing I'm going to talk about is, of course, the herbs. Everyone loves herbs. People love watching my videos on herbs. People watch other videos on herbs, and everyone's very much tonic herb crazy at the moment. That's a wonderful thing, because these things, specifically the herbs from China, but also other areas of the world, that would be labeled as adaptogens, tonic herbs, Rasayana herbs, they're all very much promotional to balancing various processes in the body without negative side effects and without the potential for overdose and without the potential for getting used to the herb and having to change it. So it's very much a layman's way of using herbs without too much study, and it's very safe and effective and can really replace some of the synthetic supplementation things people are doing and other things that might not be the absolute best thing for our health. So we have a lot of long-term evidence that supports the use of these types of herbs in various cultures for thousands of years, going way back. And they're, in my opinion, one of the greatest tools you can have in your lifestyle for reaching a peak level of health that is sustainable in the long run. So we're going to go over two different groups of herbs. First is going to be the Yin Jing tonics, and we're going to talk about Yin Jing tonics that are also Yang Jing tonics, and they sort of have a dual effect on Jing. Some of those will have been mentioned in the past video as well, but these are very beneficial because they can be used just on their own as an overall booster of Jing. One thing I want you to also notice is that both Yin and Yang Jing tonics are almost, in all cases, aphrodisiac herbs. So they boost libido, they increase fertility, they improve the health of the entire urogenital system. So that's working on the kidneys, working on the urinary system, working on the reproductive system, and also working on the hormonal system, and improving these. And that in and of itself is what creates these beneficial long-term effects, because one of the prime indicators, according to Taoist philosophy, of an aging body is the loss of libido. So herbs are a great addition that help support this, and the number one thing I'm going to mention, because it's my all-time favorite herb, is Wu. This herb is a root that is harvested and then prepared in a black bean sauce that is then sliced up and dried, and it is incredibly rich in zinc, and it's very well known for preventing and even reversing graying of the hair. It's rich in copper, so both the zinc and the copper in combination are great for the hair and remineralizing the deficiencies that can be the cause of some people's gray hair. So it's not a cure-all by any means, but it's very effective. I've seen a lot of people have almost like dark colors coming up from the root halfway up the hair, and they pluck out a gray hair that is then half darkened already, and they're actually rejuvenating and returning the color to the hair. I've seen that on multiple occasions, and it's really the absolute best thing for this sort of cosmetic issue that some people have with premature graying of the hair. It's also very rich in iron and a whole wide variety of other minerals, and that allows it to build the blood. It's rich in lecithin, which helps clean the blood and prevent arteriosclerosis from occurring in the blood vessels, and that in and of itself also clears the capillaries that run through the scalp, which in and of itself is helping towards the maintenance of hair color and also preventing balding in men. And by weight, it is equal in its content of zinc as oysters, so it's around that 40 milligrams of zinc per 100 grams. So one dose of Wu, if you're making the whole tea, say it was a handful of herbs, that's going to be around 100 grams, or anywhere from 50 to 100 grams. You put that into a tea and you brew it up. And all the herbs I talk about you can find at links below in this drop-down menu below this video if you want to purchase them and also support me in the process. Number 2 on my list of Yin Jing tonic herbs is going to be E3 Live, or the species name, which is Aphanizomenon flossequa. And it is also more generally known as clamanthic blue-green algae. So it's a species of blue-green algae, and the blue part of the blue-green algae indicates that this organism has been around for so long, going back to when the atmosphere was so thin that plants had to be blue on the planet in order to properly filter out unnecessary UV rays and other types of radiation that they didn't want to take on. And over time, as oxygen built up in the atmosphere, we got the more green color we see in plants today. But for whatever reason, the blue-green algae species have maintained the blue pigment, which has a number of beneficial properties to it. So within that blue pigment, you're going to find phycocyanin. phenylethylamine, and there's probably a lot of other things in there as well. And the green portion is largely chlorophyll and proteins and things. But the blue portion is going to have the brain boosting effects, and some people might start to think, oh, it's the brain that's associating with Shen. But the brain in Chinese medicine is referred to as the sea of marrow. And the bone marrow is governed again by this philosophy, by Jing. So the brain and the bone marrow is connected. You can think of the cerebrospinal fluid as being connected to that as well. And the phenylethylamine really builds and maintains brain health, helping us stay happier and more content with life. Our body makes it, but having it in the diet can be beneficial as well. And the phycocyanin has a number of different benefits going on for it. And one other thing that's going on with the blue pigment, I'm not sure exactly what compound is doing this, but E3 Live, specifically the Aphanizomenon aqua strain of algae, has been shown to increase the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. There's been nothing else in nature that's found to do this as a food, and as we know, stem cells are sort of like the primordial cells of our body that can turn into any other cell. So if we have injuries, the extra release of stem cell circulating in our bloodstream is going to be beneficial in repairing that. And probably with the use of other types of herbs, we can actually, in some ways, direct those stem cells. That's very theoretical, but interesting nonetheless. And spirulina is something that's kind of related to Aphanizomenon aqua. It's a blue-green algae, much less dense in the blue pigments, but it has some unique things going on for it, which I would classify it as a Jing food as well, a Yin Jing food. Besides its rich mineral content and protein content, which is very building, it has a unique array of fatty acids. It's rich in DHA, which helps build the brain. And it also contains a unique fatty acid that isn't considered essential, but is so rare in our diets, unless we were breastfed a lot growing up. But we don't get it in foods largely, that it's great when we get it from anything, and that's GLA, ganolinoleic acid. It's an omega-6 fatty acid, but it's an anti-inflammatory one, whereas the other types of omega-6 fatty acids are inflammatory. So it's got the anti-inflammatory effect. It's a building block for prostaglandins in the body. Some of them are inflammatory prostaglandins, the ones that require a combination of EPA, arachidonic acid, and the ganolinoleic acid are prostaglandins that are made in semen. And humans, on average, both male and female humans, make more prostaglandins than any other species on the planet. And these specific ones have anti-inflammatory effects on eyesight, joint health, cardiovascular system, and they actually boost mood. And males make up to 100 times more than females, and is actually concentrated in the fluid that would be released at the time of ejaculation. Not the actual sperm itself, but the fluid that would be surrounding it. And women actually have receptors for this that they're known to be able to absorb from, and that in turn boosts their mood. And in a reproductive state, as this is happening, this is actually going to be beneficial for making the woman to be in such a state that increases the likelihood of conception. So that little tidbit of information might be interesting to you, but take into account that concept that this unique fatty acid that is so deficient in people's diets, the GLA, just in the act of ejaculation for men, you're going to run that level down in your body. You might have had a large abundance of it after being breastfed growing up, but over time that's going to deplete, and there's very few foods in our diet that would contain it, but spirulina is a great one to add in periodic amounts to maintain those levels. So we're going to go through the rest of the list a little quicker, as I've been really getting in depth on some of these things, and I'm not going to have time to do that for the large list of herbs I've compiled. Next up is Romania, which is another root similar to Hoshiwu in its Yin Jing tonic properties that also doubles as a blood builder. It can be eaten on its own. That's something I snack on sometimes. It looks like a round, black, flattened pancake kind of thing. It's sticky and pliable. But when boiled in a tea, it adds a sweet, sort of smoky flavor. Maybe not smoky is the right word, but you'd have to try it out for yourself. Darkens the tea, makes it very cooling, and has this yin jing quality that you can really feel as you drink it, I find. Next up is asparagus root, also known as shatavari in the Ayurvedic system of herbalism. And it is primarily a female tonic, but it can be used by males as well. It's got yin jing tonic herbal properties, but it's also has Shen tonic properties. It's very good for moistening the body if there's dry states occurring. And it is actually very tasty. You can eat it straight. Similar to Romani, I think it's even better tasting. Really good. Asparagus root will almost have like a gummy bear type texture. It'll be really soft and chewy, has this vague sweetness, and it goes great with many different combinations of herbal teas that you can create. Another really important herb in the entire Chinese system is goji berries. I could go on and on about goji berries. It's a complete protein. It's very rich in a wide range of rare trace minerals. It's got a variety of different long-chain sugar known as polysaccharides that activate different parts of the immune system, bringing them into balance, increasing the overall fortitude of our immune system defenses. It's a blood builder. It's the Jing builder because it has this unique quality of increasing the body's own production of human growth hormone. It's the only food that's known to be able to do that. It's known as a secretagogue. I'll stick some links below of articles I've written on some of these herbs. I haven't written them on all of them, but goji berries, hoshiwu, and a few others I've written articles about. So any articles you see in the drop-down menu below will take you to a page on my site where I've written about them in greater detail than I can fit in this video. A unique herb not many people are talking about is tortoise shell. It is obviously not vegan or even vegetarian, and it's a unique species of tortoise that's used that has various compounds in the shell that when boiled and made into a soup or at the base of the soup is very beneficial. So something that can be similar to this that we could take as sort of the Western tradition of this is marrow broth or bone marrow broth. You could experiment with either or and see what gives you the best effect. I've got a link below for bones if you want to make bone marrow broth. If you want to make broth from a tortoise shell, you're going to have to purchase that in Chinatown, or sometimes you can find herbal formulas that contain it. So largely you're getting a lot of gelatin, which is very cooling to the body and very building. It provides a lot of amino acids that might be out of balance if you're eating a lot of your amino acids from just plants, or if you're eating just flesh from animals and not enough of the organ meats and the bones, or at least the products of the bones. And naturally that's going to be building to your own skeletal system, your joints, and the other tissues of the body that are somewhere in between soft and hard tissues. I've spoken about Gynostemma before as well. It has a number of tonic properties, very rich in saponins, 3 or 4 times more saponins than ginseng, so those compounds that ginseng is so well known for being anti-aging and overall health boosting. Gynostemma has 3 or 4 times more, up into the hundreds. Ginseng can have around 30, 40 different types of these saponins, but it's cheaper for one. It's just simply a grass that's harvested en masse and dried, and you can make it in a shorter amount of time, just like you would green tea or holy basil tea. You can get Gynostemma in a tea bag form, or you can get it in the loose leaf tea. You can simply just bring up to a boil on a stove and then turn it off, or you can pour boiling water over it and let it steep for 5-10 minutes, and then you've got a really light tea that you should, if you want to really get on this anti-aging program, be drinking as your fluid throughout the day. It's going to have a lot of these properties that will be continuously washing through your system and bringing about the benefits that it carries. Another great Yin Jing tonic is something I used in my very first video on this channel. If you want to check out that video, you can click here. Really odd in terms of the way I was speaking at that time. It was very slow and monotonous, but if you pay attention to later on in the video when I'm making the herbal tea, I talk about an herb. I forget the Chinese name, but I refer it to by the Chinese name, but that's Dendrobium. It's actually the stems and some of the leaves I'm putting in there. They're golden in color. They have a bit of a spongy texture to them, hard on the outside but spongy on the inside. And that's a very beneficial herb that a lot of practitioners of various healing arts drink. Ron Teagar, in his book Chinese Tonic Herbs, an out-of-date book that was published I think late 70s, early 80s. I have a copy of it. He talks about when he was in different classes studying the different things he studied in his formative years, they would drink a lot of this tea, and it's popular in massage schools and in other sort of Chinese herbal schools that the students drink to sort of replenish after they've been working on someone. So it's really great for anyone during the day. It can almost be combined with Gynostemma and these other herbs that you want to sort of take in daily for extremely long stretches of time, just to reduce stress and maintain health overall. 2 more Yin Jing tonics, which would be moving more into the category of foods, would be bee pollen, which has numerous benefits. I've got an article below if you want to learn more about it. Complete protein, rich in lecithin, rich in minerals, rich in B vitamins, and it also has some unique compounds that accelerate growth in the body and accelerate repair, and very popular with athletes. The other thing would be black sesame seeds, which generally herbs that are black in color are Yin Jing tonics. So we see that with the hoshiwu, romania, and black sesame is another one. and it has various minerals in giving it that black color, which are beneficial for the body and somewhat rare in other foods. So to talk about some of these yin and yang Jing tonics, which can be used in combination with or on their own from the herbs I've already mentioned, or other herbs that you see me talk about in other videos that are considered tonic herbs, they are in and of themselves very powerful just on their own. And some of them are actually even slightly more yang than yin, but I'm just including them in here because they have very powerful regenerative, rebuilding, and restorative properties. So number one is going to be elk antler or deer antler. It is definitely very yang, but it has a very powerful yin tonic effect. And that's going to be the regenerative effects you see from the various compounds. You can check out here if you want to watch a video I did on in the recent past, and you can tell by the certain things I talk about it having compounds in it that geckos and other lizards that have the regenerative abilities of their limbs actually have circulating in their bloodstream. So you can get that from elk antler. And something else from a similar animal in the cervid family is going to be deer placenta. So you can get deer or elk antler, but you can also get deer placenta. Haven't seen elk placenta yet, but that would be interesting if that product ever hit market to see the difference comparing deer and elk placenta. But placenta is also rich in IGF-1, similar to elk antler, but it's also very rich in hyaluronic acid. So it's spelled there on the screen just for those who want to look that up and find out more about what that does. It's very building to the skin. It's in a lot of anti-aging products now, and in my opinion it's best to get it from a whole food source as opposed to a synthetic source. So this is one way to get it and have that beautifying effect, but also just the fact that deer who don't consume their own placenta after they've given birth, so it's not taking anything away from the deer. This is something that they have happen when they give birth, and it's a very precious commodity because they only give birth every once in a while, but a very small amount is very beneficial. So taking that for a period of time, if you're really depleted, is good. It's probably not an all the time type of yin jing tonic you want to take, but it does have that wonderful effect of rebuilding after something has happened to you that was very draining. So even if you were someone who gave birth, or you're someone who's been in some sort of accident and you need to rebuild, or you're recovering from chronic illness, is really one of the best things you can take for that recovery process. Another one of my favorite herbs on this list is Cordyceps. This is a mushroom which grows in the wild as a parasite that bursts out of insects and obviously kills the insects, and it uses their body for nutrients and then grows up out of that. They've managed to be able to cultivate that in laboratories to be able to make it en masse and also make it vegetarian, and you can check out that at the links below. What the site I do have listed actually isn't vegetarian grown, but you can always find that if you want that specifically. Is look for vegetarian or vegan cordyceps that are grown, I believe, on some sort of like rice medium. But anyways, regardless, it has this very adaptogenic property. It's been used by the Chinese Olympic team that they credit for a lot of their success. And it came out back in the 90s when they won a string of track and field events at one of the Olympics. That was a factor. That was a new addition to their whole regimen that was really benefiting them. And so it has this ability to increase ATP production, increase blood oxygenation, so it's wonderful if you're a mountain climber going up into the mountains, or you're someone that just needs more oxygenation. Maybe you're suffering from a chronic disease like cancer. Anything that oxygen benefits, there's a wide variety of things that oxygen is obviously good for. So the more you can carry in your blood, the better, because you'll be getting more of it to the cells. Probably the most esteemed substance in the Ayurvedic herbal system is Shilajit. We can call it an herb, but it is a mineral pitch. Technically, it is organic in its matter. It was once animals and plants over hundreds of millions of years ago that have been squashed down and pressed flat over and over again, and they build up this mineral pitch that is within rocks, which just seeps out at certain parts of the Himalayas. It's very rich in weak organic acids, which break up calcification in the body. Very rich in a wide variety of minerals, helps in the absorption of other minerals, so it's great to take Shilajit in elixirs and other concoctions, herbal teas, etc. to help increase the absorption of these other compounds. And finally, something that's also great to add in there for both the yin and yang jing tonic properties is going to be colostrum powder. I've spoken plenty about this in the past. It is one of the most complete foods on the planet, very rich in IGF-1, rich in a whole host of other growth factors, over 87 different growth factors, very great for building the immune system, very rebuilding and regrowing to the thymus gland, which atrophies over time in virtually everyone and becomes almost like a useless bit of tissue in people's chest that is a very active part of the immune system, but with the addition of colostrum we can help maintain that and regrow it to a certain extent when we add that into our diet. So I've just barely scratched the surface on the vast scope of different herbs and superfoods that would have yin jing tonic properties. But these are definitely the top ones in my opinion, and I'm just giving this group of them so that anyone out there wants to begin exploring these can start adding them into their lifestyles in various amounts. You don't have to do them all, just go to the ones you feel most drawn to, of course, and work them into your diet in elixirs, in teas, and food even. That's not something everyone talks about that much, but I'll do some recipes in the near future where I utilize tonic herbs. If you're making bone marrow broth, you can throw like some reishi in there, or astragalus, or hoshiwu, and it's brewing time, and that just helps make the broth both mineralizing but also having these adaptogenic properties. A major factor with all these herbs and superfoods I've discussed is, like I said before, their aphrodisiac properties. So less so than women, but with men, there needs to be a certain intelligence that you bring into your sexuality. So the overuse and misuse of your sexuality is going to result in the draining of what we would call yin jing especially, but jing overall. It definitely brings down yang jing, but if you were to think of a tub of water that you fill up and past a certain point you're done filling yin jing, it's going to start filling yang jing. If you pull out the plug from below, you're going to drain all the yin jing first, then that goes the yang jing. So the yin is the cooling, building foundation that allows our yang jing, the fiery, more active part of jing, to manifest. We want to build up that yin jing so it can support the yang, and one way to do that is to limit the amount of ejaculations you engage in. This involves some practicing, different practices. I've done past videos about this. Check out this video here. Gives more in-depth reasons why this is so draining if you're excessive with it. It doesn't mean you can never ejaculate, I'm not saying that. But limiting it to a certain amount is definitely beneficial for most people. I do have to say that if you're not prepared to do the proper exercises that go along with it, I highly recommend against completely stopping ejaculation. It is a natural process, but it does have its negative side effects, and there's a sort of circulation of energy that happens when we do release in that way. And so almost like something that's building up over pressure, if you don't know how to circulate that energy properly, it can do more damage than the benefits you get of withholding the semen. It's actually more so the ejaculate fluid. And it's actually more the ejaculate fluid which is going to be rich in the minerals, the zinc, the prostaglandins, and all these other compounds that is draining to us. But also the production of these things makes our testosterone plummet. There's been a few studies, as that video shows, that over the 1 to 2 week period, testosterone levels peak and then they stay high, and anytime a man ejaculates, they drop down and then they start climbing back up as the production of semen slows down. So to produce enough vitality with our reproductive fluids, we need that testosterone, and the use of it causes those levels to drop. So naturally we can understand what the effect of withholding some of these fluids, at least on a sporadic basis, has on the body, the benefits it has. So in terms of exercises we can do that help build yin jing, you're going to want to look at more slow exercises. So in the yang jing video I talked about weightlifting, strength training, and those are great for really bringing out the potency of our endocrine system, so boosting those androgenic hormones in the body through weight training, etc. For yin jing, we want to do a lot more relaxing exercises. So this can be qigong, yoga, tai chi, at least the more passive forms of tai chi, which is most tai chi around today, unfortunately. Anything that would have that effect of being more of a stretching or loosening based exercise. Some of my favorite movements that you consider yin jing building exercises are going to be things that work on the joints. There's a great program called Super Joints you can check out in links below that I follow daily for maintaining joint health. And this is sort of a Russian or Eastern European yoga, adapted different exercises into it. Some might be considered yoga exercises. They're done a little differently. There's some ballet exercises, oddly enough, but of course they can be done in a way that's not too effeminate. Once you see Pavel Tsatsouline doing them, you can feel confident that it's not emasculating. And it's very great for bringing length to the spine, preventing long-term compound injuries, because if all you're doing is the more active forms of exercise, you're imbalancing your system by not having the yin, more cooling, relaxing and expanding exercises that happen more on a subtle level. Another important factor in this is meditation practices. So anything where you completely stop moving around and you're doing internal exercises, whether it's an exercise that's actively using your mind or it's more of a stillness meditation where you're bringing calmness and centering your mind, they're all beneficial and could all be considered yin jing building, in that they help you bring about a better stability emotionally and mentally, and then that translates into the outside world, that you're able to carry that presence and that stillness throughout your life in everyday ways, so you're not as easily off-put and emotionally triggered by things in your life. So I've done a video here if you want to learn about something like the microcosmic orbit. That's just one meditation I put out there to help people get started on this path. There's plenty of different systems, etc. I'm not going to make specific recommendations, but if you want to know what I do, I follow the system of Franz Barden. He came out with a book way back in the early 1900s called Initiation into Hermetics. He had several books that followed, but I'd start by looking up just a little bit about him. Here's his name on the screen, and the book is Initiation into Hermetics. If you have questions about that, you can always ask me in personal messages. I can offer my experiences and recommendations about that system, but it's not something I'm too actively going to be talking about on my channel. But if you want to see some of the potential that where it can lead, check out my friend's channel, Martin Fox. He's put up some really interesting videos lately that have gotten a lot of attention, and kind of shows you the potential of the human body as well, which is something I've always been interested in exploring. So if you're really into this idea of longevity for the allowance of more time to be able to do more self-cultivation, as I am, you'll definitely want to check out the works of people like Martin Fox, Franz Barden, and some of this more long-term devotional exercises. It's not just a little exercise you do and have so-called immediate benefits. It's benefits that build one on top of each other, and in the long run you're going to really see the results and the benefits that come from them. So with that, check out the links below for the articles and products I've talked about. Leave a comment below as to what you've experienced in building Yin Jing. Subscribe if you haven't done that before, and with that, take care and embrace life without limits.